She got away, she got away, she got away, she got away, oh she got away, oh she got away. She got away, she got away, she got away, she got away, oh she got away, oh she got away.
Welcome to She Got Away, the show where I, Kibbi, share my journey of survival and healing from the depths of Satanic Ritual Abuse, or SRA, also known as Organized Ritual Abuse. This type of abuse is an extreme form of abuse, often silenced, where criminal activities intersect with unspeakable acts of sexual abuse. Through my narrative, I aspire to share my story to help my own healing journey, to give a voice to children being trafficked, to spread awareness, and to relate to other survivors. I believe this topic should be talked about. This podcast is for anyone with an open mind who also doesn't get triggered by evil. Welcome. I'm so glad you're here. It won't be all gloom or doom. Let's go spread some light. Hi, welcome to episode 1 of She Got Away. What is Satanic or Organized Ritual Abuse? I'm Kibbi, your host. Thank you for being here. I appreciate your support more than I can express. I've always wanted to share my story as a child, and I finally am, and it feels so surreal. I can't believe I'm here. You're probably listening, but in case you're watching on YouTube, I can't believe I'm on camera, which may not work out because I'm struggling with the technical side of podcasting, but I can't believe it. I can't believe it. This is so surreal to me. I've worked really hard to get to a point where I could have enough strength to do this. And you might even still hear the shaking in my voice. But one thing I've learned is to walk through my fear, walk through my shame, walk through anything that I'm holding back and not conform to society's rule of don't talk. So I'm not. I'm being me, and this is who I am. If you haven't hit subscribed, please hit the subscribe button. I would really appreciate your support on my crazy new journey. I started sharing my truth in April on TikTok. I knew I wanted to share my truth in a podcast, but I was working like a snail, so I created a TikTok account without my name for practice. And I'm overwhelmed by the loving responses I have gotten. Where have these people been my whole life? People didn't listen to me as a child like this. I'm seeing how much good there actually is in the world the more I share my story. And I appreciate people who accept me for my truth, because that hasn't been the case most of my life. People from TikTok have given me strength to speed up the process of this podcast and even be here. Thank you. Thank you for hearing me. Thank you for being here. And thank you to anyone who's followed my art in the past 5 years, or my dissociative identity disorder. Both I exposed on social media. Social media has been a huge part of my healing process. Welcome to you all. And if you don't know me, welcome. It's a long journey of what I survived that I'm going to describe to you about my experience with satanic ritual abuse or ritual abuse. So grab some popcorn or tissues or both. I brought my art with me. I want you to enter my art world because I love art. I love painting. And you may be listening through a source that doesn't have a visual, but in case you can see, I put some pieces up. I know how to paint. I don't know how to hang them on the wall. I know they're all scattered over, but my art makes me happy. It may make you happy too, and it may not. That's okay, but if it makes you happy, it's there for you to look at, perhaps to lift you up if I'm talking about something super evil or sad. It's a solo show with my art and I. I hope to have guests on this show, though. Today we're going to talk about what is satanic ritual or ritual abuse, a little controversy around it. I'm going to give you a quick timeline of my life, and then I'm going to answer some common questions from you guys. Okay, let's get into it. What is satanic ritual abuse? It's like I don't want to answer this. I don't want to talk about this. I don't like it. But I don't want to leave you hanging, so I'll do my best. The reason why I don't like it is because there's so much controversy around it, and I've always experienced controversy around my truth, and I don't like it. I don't. And that's one reason why I'm here, to spread awareness, because our understanding of this issue is so broad, and I want to help be a part of the change that narrows that. Satanic ritual abuse, or also known as ritual abuse or organized ritual abuse, is hard to get a clear-cut definition, and there's also controversy over the name. Some people use this, some people use that, which one's right, which one's wrong. I didn't realize there was so much controversy over the name until I started sharing my truth. So I'm very accustomed to using the name Satanic Ritual Abuse. That's what I've always known it as, but I'm coming to find out there's other viewpoints, which I respect, so I will also say I'm a ritual abuse survivor and or organized ritual abuse survivor. I'll just give you an impromptu definition of what I think satanic ritual abuse is, or this type of abuse. It is when adults do unspeakable acts of violence, crimes, to fulfill their own sick desires. I don't quite understand the adults' motives, but they do these things such as sacrifice children, eat the human flesh, and it gets dark, it gets deep. Culty activity. Culty meaning it's hard to escape once you get involved in this type of behavior. And the motive is the adult is seeking power, control, money to fulfill their own sick sexual desires or any other sick motive they may have behind it. It's like, who would do these things, right? And I don't have a clear-cut answer for you on that either. Hopefully, we will both have a better understanding as we navigate through this podcast together. So that is just my impromptu definition, very briefly, on this type of abuse. I don't want to get into too much of the controversy right now. I do want to say it's there, not only about the abuse happening itself, but the name as well. I hope I gave you a little bit of an understanding of what's going on in our world today and what I'm trying to spread awareness about. I have a good resource for you to find a better understanding of this type of abuse if you are interested, and that is called Supporting SRA Survivors Facebook page. I will link that below. Also, many people are asking me what went on at the rituals. I'm not ready to open up about that quite yet, but there are brave survivors on that page who have opened up about rituals they have seen. You just need to scroll down and we'll find them. There's some other survivors who have given testimonies. I personally haven't seen a lot of these because I've been so focused on my own recovery and healing. But if you know of any names of other survivors who have given their testimony, please drop it in the comments so any of us listeners can read up on them if we choose to. Thank you for dropping a name. I know there's many other survivors who've given their testimony, so I appreciate it. Let's talk about why I'm inspired to be here. To do something as crazy as share my horrid truth on YouTube with the camera on. I'm inspired in many ways. There's many reasons. I have a lot of passion around this topic. Speaking my story helps me heal. I've already spoken my story with art. I didn't put it in words. And when I spoke it with art, sharing my story tremendously healed a piece of my heart, my soul. And so I continue that journey, and now I speak it with words. So I'm doing this because it's healing. I'm also doing it to give trafficked children a voice, period. I'm also inspired to speak out because of the controversy around this issue. There is such a misunderstanding that our society has, and it's so broad. It's so big. The range on my comments as I share my truth range from, "You're crazy, you should be locked up in an asylum or jail for being an accomplice," to "I'm delusional," all the way to, "I know this happens. It happens all the time. It's very common." And that's such a broad range, right? Like, it's from one spectrum to the other. Why is our understanding about this topic so large and broad. There's children's lives at stake. I want to be a part of the change that narrows that understanding. Of course, there will always be people who are sick in their own denial about their own true selves, who are incapable of facing this type of truth. But for the rest of us, I want to help narrow our understanding because we're just not educated as a whole in society, in my opinion. I'm also inspired to be here to relate to other survivors. I've been sharing my story for around a month, and I cannot believe how many survivors relate to me. That is a blessing. When I was younger and at these rituals, I would look at the other kids my age and I would wonder, am I going to be their friends one day when we get older? And are we going to be able to talk about this and connect about it and be healing friends together? And it's happening. It was happening before speaking out, but now it's happening at a much more rapid pace. It's a beautiful thing to me to relate to other survivors, although meeting under very unfortunate circumstances. I'm also inspired to be here because when I was a kid, I was telling my mom all the time that what she was doing was wrong, and I was saying that when I got older, I was going to share my story. I was going to tell on her. This has been a childhood dream for me to get up and have the strength and say what my mom did. I've always wanted this. I always told my mom I was going to do it. She said they would lock me up in the loony bin. I'm so grateful to be sharing my truth. Okay, let's get into a little bit of my disgusting childhood and how it affected me. I'm just going to give you a general timeline of my life today, and then I'm going to answer a few common questions from you guys. Okay, let's start with my childhood. I was born into a family with 2 sisters. I'm the middle. We're all close in age. My mom and dad never gave me a good story of how they met. They just said through mutual friends. I know my dad was dating somebody else before my mom, and he really wanted kids, and that woman did not. And that was a deal breaker for him. And so he went out, met my mom, called the girl he was dating and said, everything's good, I met someone, I'm moving on. So I feel a big reason why my dad chose my mom was because he really wanted kids. She was going to give him that. He was also very vulnerable and submissive and very sick himself, growing up in a dysfunctional family himself. And my mom was very dominant and controlling, and so it was a good mix when it comes to trauma bonding and having an unhealthy relationship, and that was my parents. My dad was a doormat. My mom was in control of everything. I've never seen them kiss. I say I love you. I don't think my mom did like him. It was a really weird relationship to grow up around. The rituals I witnessed of the adults sacrificing children, one time even cats, and eating human flesh happened when I was 0 to 8 years old. My dad got cancer when I was 8 and he died when I was 9. My mom needed him in order to do these rituals because my father was in charge of picking up the child and cleaning up, 2 duties that my mom refused to do. Had my dad not passed away, I don't know what would have happened because growing up, when I would express to my mom that this was wrong, she would tell me that these rituals were going to stop around the age of 10 so that it would be easier for us to forget. So they maybe would have stopped anyways if he didn't die, but I don't know. He died, they stopped. And for the sake of the children, I am grateful that he passed on when I was 9. I wish it was sooner. Like I was saying, my mom and I had beliefs that were polar opposites. She was saying that this was okay, that she was doing good, and I was saying no, she wasn't. Her and I mutually didn't like each other. She oftentimes scolded me for having these beliefs. For example, she would lock me in a cage. I was the scapegoat of the family. I was psychologically abused in a different way. I was basically told I was crazy and delusional my whole life. I just received a different type of psychological abuse because I stood up for my beliefs. But because I stood up for my beliefs so much as a child, I believe that's one reason why I was able to get out of it and why I'm here today. So growing up, my mom and dad had this weird relationship. My mom's sacrificing children and then getting off to watching other people sacrifice children. Meanwhile, my mom and I mutually don't like each other. It's a known thing in my family. I can kind of tolerate my dad, but he kept telling me he would stop doing the rituals. He would stop going out to get the kids. He would promise over and over, and then he would break that promise. So that was very confusing for me. All of the kids I witnessed being sacrificed were young, from age 0 to 4-ish, and all male, except for Sam. He was 8, who's another story, another episode. So they had that similarity between them all. Witchcraft or witchy vibes were involved too. I don't know to what extent. I am not educated about witchcraft. I just know witchy vibes happened in my childhood, and I can tell you about them. I haven't witnessed anything paranormal. Everything I witnessed was in human form and on Earth. But there were for sure witchy vibes. For example, during rituals, my mom would oftentimes, as she would make somebody else sacrifice the child, my mom would take a broomstick, put it in between her legs, her crotch, and she would get herself off that way watching the rituals. Not just her, but the other adult females as well. It's not like they were flying on a broomstick. They weren't. They were walking around the room, taking a broomstick, going like that, literally getting themselves off to this stuff. That's how sick this stuff is, guys. These sick adults, usually females, using the broomsticks during these rituals, meanwhile laughing. When I hear myself say it, I'm like, whoa, this is bizarre. It is. But so there were witchy vibes during the rituals with the broomsticks because I witnessed the adult females get off and they oftentimes used broomsticks. There were other witchy vibes too, like the movies my mom made us watch, or she wanted us to play with the Ouija board. But most of the vibes at home were more satanic or a spiritual psychosis, whatever way you want to look at it. Just very backed up by rationalizing with the Catholic Church, or even my mom full-on admitting things such as her selling the soul to the devil, her getting whatever she wants because she did that, or her doing these outright evil behaviors, or other indications that it was like the devil. So there were devil vibes at home and then witchy, but mostly satanic vibes, or religious abuse vibes, or spiritual psychosis vibes, whatever you want to call it. There's so much controversy around the name and titles of all this. I don't know what to use. I just want to spread the message of what's really going on. So bear with me with my articulations of what I call it. It's not about that. It's what's going on. My mom's favorite days to do the rituals were the equinoxes and solstices. That might be a witchy thing. I'm not sure. I'm just not educated about witchcraft. I just know what happened. I know my experience. I'm still figuring out my childhood as I go. I only know my experiences. As I share my story, I'm also learning a lot from you guys as I read the comments. So I'm growing up in this psychotic family. I believe that the cults came from my mom's side of the family. I believe that because I've seen my aunt in rituals. The main reason why I think it was transgenerational was not only my aunt and uncle's participation, but my grandmother's as well. She would buy us porcelain dolls. We always had porcelain dolls, and she would have us feed the porcelain dolls potion, which was their word for drugging or psychedelics. I have reason to believe that I was drugged with psychedelics as a baby, just for the simple fact, I presume, of my mom not wanting to hear me cry, blah, blah, blah. It was very soothing for me. It gave me a lot of colors. It gave me hope. It actually helped me make sense of life a little bit. It didn't hurt me, thank God. And actually, a lot of the pieces I paint are similar to the visions I saw as a baby. But back to my grandmother. So we would go to her house, and when we would spend time with grandma, we were always feeding these porcelain dolls potion. And that was her way of grooming us so that we would do it for the next generation. I knew it was wrong. I, again, stood up for my beliefs there and said it was wrong. I even went as far as saying that the dolls have feelings, but they dismissed that, and they They just said it was a part of life. They said that this feeding dolls potion or your kid's potion is a part of life. They were grooming us, and that was my grandmother grooming us. So I do believe that this is transgenerational on my mom's side of the family. So my sisters, I had 2 sisters. I had an older and my younger. My younger was on my side that this was wrong. My older and I have never gotten along. She was not on my side. But my younger was, and I think my happiest memories, my only happy memories from childhood came with being with her, but both of them are in denial today, unfortunately. So, after the rituals, my mom moved us from the city to the suburbs. She pulled us out of the Catholic Church and put us into public school, and a whole new set of brainwashing happened. She convinced us that it never happened. She said we were no longer religious, we were now spiritual, and things got pretty confusing. It was like her new mission was not to do rituals, but her new mission was to convince us that it never happened. She put us in so many extracurricular activities. I can't even tell you what I've all done. Swim club, baton, trumpet, flute, piano, competitive volleyball, basketball, soccer. I could go on. It was to distract us from the truth. It was school and extracurricular activities. That's what my life was from 9-ish to 13. And I slowly fell into denial. By age 11, I started my first coping mechanism, which was disordered eating, which is something I still have shame about, and I will talk about it because I know that for me, talking about my shame literally rids it, just not in this episode, but at age 11, I started my disordered eating, which was a coping mechanism to help me forget about my past. And I also started drugs. The first drug I used was Adderall, and a bunch of it at a time. So at age 16, I was, for the most part, in denial. I remember a few times from 11 to 16 that I wasn't in denial and I would fight my mom, but for the most part, I was. So at age 16, I'd started using this Adderall and had this disordered eating, and my drug addiction continued, and the disordered eating continued. The whole time I'm thinking, like, what's wrong with me? Why am I doing this eating thing? Why am I doing drugs? My true self would never be a drug addict. And I would go to my mom and I would say, did anything happen in our childhood that I'm like this way? What's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? And she always denied it and said there was something wrong with me, with you. It's like anytime I went to her with my feelings that there was something wrong with me, she told me, yeah, there is something wrong with you. Those were so painful of years, and I forgot. I slipped into denial, using my coping mechanisms alongside being brainwashed by her. I wanted to love my mom, after all. Don't we all? And when denial took over, honestly, I started to idolize my mom. I started to think she was a good mom. By the time I was around 20, I thought she was a good mom, and I thought that I was the 100% issue. At age 23, I moved from Wisconsin to the West Coast. I got sober shortly after, and from 24 to 30, I was stone cold sober, living on the West Coast, thousands of miles away from my family. But getting sober wasn't enough. I still had my disordered eating, and I was also a compulsive runner that I started at 16 that only progressively got worse. I know it sounds healthy, but I took it to an extreme where it was not healthy. It was self-destructive. So from 24 to 30, I'm on the West Coast, sober, using my coping mechanisms of the disordered eating and the running, and I was very confused during those years. They were painful too, but in a different way. I remember looking at people wondering how they could smile, wondering how they could authentically make friends with someone, how they could connect with someone. I was struggling finding my own self, having my own feelings. I oftentimes felt like a robot. I was so disconnected from my true identity in my late 20s, but I was away from my family. So I think that was good that I was away from my family. By the time I was 30, my coping mechanisms were too destructive to my health. It was like I had to get better. Like, what's going on, right? I'm doing these crazy things. It's time. I'm 30 years old. I'm going to get me some help. So I started therapy and I started a 12-step program. I regained my relationship with a higher power, who I choose to call God. I got myself set up and I stopped using the coping mechanisms. And my trauma came up like popcorn, but I had the support. I even went to the emergency room for a flashback. 2019 was the year of the majority of my flashbacks. I think next episode might be about the year 2019. So from 30 to 36, I've been recovering. I've focused on the trauma itself. I've learned about the type of abuse. There's been a lot within my recovery. My 4 main pillars of recovery are 12-step programs, particularly adult children of alcoholics, or ACA. I don't know why it's called that. I wish it was like PTSD Anonymous. Therapy, art therapy, and an infinite amount of God. And that has been working for me for the past 6 years. I'm 36 today. That is my timeline in a nutshell. Okay, next topic, questions from you guys. Let's start with the most common one. Where did the kids come from that were sacrificed? Great question. I tried answering on TikTok and it was taken down. So it's a topic I try to avoid on TikTok. I didn't learn this until I was an adult. When I was a child, I thought that my parents just got the children from random families. So I would constantly search the milk cartons. I would look in trash for milk cartons. I'd always check the missing children section, but I never found the children. But as an adult, while working through my trauma and learning about this type of abuse, I realized that the children were undocumented. They've never seen a birth certificate. They don't have parents to miss them. They're children trafficked. Like, they're whether they were born to be trafficked or their purpose became to be trafficked due to money or some other motive, who knows? But these children were trafficked children and undocumented. It hurts to say. I hate it. I hate it so much. That's one reason why I'm here. I think I had it bad. These children had it bad. I'll never stop caring about these children. Another thing that makes me, in my story, think it's undocumented kids is because my parents are just too smart for that, first of all. They would not risk just taking any child. My parents were so smart, particularly my mom. Why else did they get away with this? How my father did the cleanup so well is beyond me. How he disposed of everything so well is beyond me. They were very smart at what they did. It was very organized. But something that really indicates to me that these children came from broken homes was there was this one ritual with this 8-year-old. The rest were younger. This guy's name was Sam. He was an 8-year-old boy from Chicago. My dad brought Sam home and said that Sam was a part of the family. And I was so excited that my new brother Sam was going to fix my broken family. And that night we had dinner with Sam. I got to know Sam for about 2 hours. That will be another episode. You will be hearing about Sam. Sam and my best friend Oscar, by the way. Sam and Oscar are both with me, with us. And we'll talk more about Sam and Oscar. But during the ritual, or the night of Sam was over for dinner, and this 8-year-old boy was told by my parents that he was now a part of my family. Sam's behavior was so happy. He was so happy. This 8-year-old boy was over at our house eating dinner, just thrilled to be a part of a new family. What 8-year-old boy acts like that? Just willingly leaves his family and is so on board with being a part of a new one. That tells me that he came from a broken home. That tells me he came from somewhere broken. That isn't normal. Furthermore, during the ritual, I told myself, Sam, 8 years old, Chicago, on repeat in my head so I wouldn't dissociate and so I could remember Sam, 8 years old, Chicago when I got older. I did remember Sam, 8 years old, Chicago. I got it checked out with the authorities. There is no match. That's another sign he's undocumented. So that's where they got the kids. from a pool of children that are trafficked. It's sad, but that's the truth based off of many clues and observations. The next question is, how did they get away with it? I'm still figuring it out. I know my mom and my dad were a very effective, destructive team together. My dad did certain duties, my mom did the others, and they made it happen together. Everything was planned to a T and very organized, and since the children didn't have anyone to go chasing after them, that made things easier. I was told there was an investigation on my family by my dad's brother, but my mom must have passed it. She's very good at talking to people. She is good at talking to people. When you talk to her, she's the type of person that makes you feel warm and safe and accepted and is very nice. People from my childhood cannot even grasp that my family would do this because my mom is so nice. And that's one way that these people get away with it. I didn't report anything until I was 30 because I was in denial from 13-ish to 30, and by the time I reported when I was 30, law enforcement said I need another person within the cult to come forward, and I hope another person within the cult comes forward. I really do. Or I hope they take it seriously and investigate. That's how they got away with it, and I wish they could do something. I understand that it's hard for them to find evidence, but it's a big deal. Let's just hope that the rituals stopped when I stopped witnessing them at 8 and that no one within my family took on the role of my mother. I mean, she's not practicing today that I know of. I don't know. I haven't been there for 13 years. That's another question. Are they practicing today? I don't know. And it hurts to think about. I tried to file a report with the FBI, but the representative told me I was really sick for prank calling her. But I wasn't. And my therapist at the time, 5 years ago, tried filing a report with Child Protective Services, and nothing came of that. They were thoroughly confused. So that's that. Hopefully, my father's passed, but hopefully my mom, justice is served. Hopefully. I hope so. Last question, what does my faith look like after going through all that? I could answer this for a long time. And I'm going to sum it up. I was heavily religiously abused. I know of God through the church, so I call my higher power God. My faith is within God or our creator, whatever you want to call it. That is what has helped me so far. That is what has helped me escape and give me the stamina and strength to escape. That entity is so good to me, who I choose to call God. And I don't choose an organized religion. They trigger me as I was religiously abused. I will ask questions, and I haven't found one that can answer them all in a way that makes sense to me. So for right now, my first priority is to maintain my strong relationship with God, number one. And I trust God to lead me to a religion if God chooses to. But my main priority, like I said, is having this relationship with God. It's very important to me to maintain my relationship with God on an hourly basis, if need be. Absolutely every day, I stay in conscious contact with my higher power. And that is very important to me, my faith and God. And I currently am not in a religion, and that is okay. God has my back. Oh my gosh, that concludes our first episode. I'm really relieved it's done. I'm actually so nervous. I'm just going to read the best. Today we discussed what satanic ritual or ritual abuse is, its controversy. I gave you a little timeline of my life and answered a couple of questions for you. Tune in with us next week for episode 2, Facing Truth in 2019, where I will talk about 2019, the year I went from denial to truth and the majority of my flashbacks came up. I'll also continue answering your questions. I have linked my social media and art websites below. If you want to hear more about my story right now and can't wait, I guested on Kelly Dillon's podcast a couple weeks ago. I feel like she got a lot out of me. I will post a link to that podcast in the descriptions as well. It's about an hour of Kelly and I talking about my crazy childhood. I have also linked that Facebook page I was talking about supporting SRA survivors. When I was a child, guys, I dreamt of sharing my story and telling on my mom. I appreciate you being here. Until next time, bye.